Hey Saber fans. So, this run took forever. It's actually still ongoing from Saberkraft. I was able to come across one of these Saberkraft Flames secondhand, and I gotta tell you, this thing does not disappoint. Absolutely stunning. I thought it was going to be too big, honestly, but I'm going to get something to compare it with. A lot of people are familiar with Luke's Return of the Jedi hilt, so size-wise, very comparable. Fairly lightweight. I have done a few mods to this so far, and you know, I really like these grips. I'm not sure if I'm sold on them yet though. It does add a little bit of chunk down there, but it's not too much, and honestly I think most times I'd be gripping it like this anyways. But anywho, figured I'd do a quick, well, it's not going to be too quick, disassembly video, and likely a reassembly video, unless I decide otherwise. Then it'll just be a disassembly video, because yeah, this thing's quite involved as far as taking it apart. I would say it's not as involved as the Green Mamba. The Green Mamba was probably one of the most complex, well-engineered sabers I've ever taken apart and put back together. A whole lot of cram food going on. I would have to say that this is probably going to be a little more install friendly. A little more room to work with anyways. There's like one way to do everything almost. So, without further ado, let's dive into it. So, have our two momentary switches up here. Have a latching switch here. Another latching switch here. You may have noticed I swapped out the brass bit and the crystal that came with it with these. Actually came from Roman Props MK1 crystal chambers, the Rudy Pando. So that was the inserts in there that got replaced with stock inserts. So had those for years, finally found a use for them. Just had to cut down the diameter of the threads to where it'll fit down in there. So for visual example, this was the original crystal holder. This was the original crystal. It's nice and all. I have plenty of crystals that have this really high polished glass finish. It looks like glass. It's so polished. It's beautiful, but I personally like to go with crystals that have a little more of a point to them. Also added some mesh on the backside there. So, first things first, you want to remove this control box clamp card. This can be a little tricky. So you essentially want to get both your switches pressed in and push from the bottom. It's the best way I've found to do it. Saberkraft 2019. See the 2019 right there? 07 of 2019. Like, whew, it's been a long, long run. Still not done. And for organizational sake, use these. Now, whenever I got this second hand, it did not come with these two screws here, so I had to, they're M3 threads, so I ended up having to, you know, cut down the length a little bit, and also had to get rid of the knurling on it because that was interfering with the aluminum down in here. You can see what I'm talking about. So cut that down. It's pretty well perfect now. And before I move on too far, I will admit the way he did the switches on this is genius. This essentially is your tension on the switches, on these two little set screws here. You can hear it better there. So if you loosen it, it takes more to press it down. If you tighten it too much, that's like perfect feedback there. But if you make it too tight of a tolerance, then it might be harder to get the control box card in. And I do like how he, I'm gonna guess that's machined on, because I don't think he does laser engraving. But I like how there's an arrow showing which way the control box card goes. So once you pop off this other screw, this comes right off. Now I did notice that this piece here that attaches onto the switch, it has quite a bit of slop even whenever this is fully tightened on. So what I did there was I took 3 layers of electrical tape and stacked them up on top of each other and put them right there, and that solved the, it was essentially just rattling anytime. Now these little inserts you have to put in yourself. You want to be very careful with those because they're so tiny. Quite impressive machining just on this piece alone. Like, geez, spring-loaded goodness. Kind of see the spring down in there, both sides. Essentially what I did here was I took a little bit of masking tape, put it along that groove, got a little drop of super glue, and just kind of lined the inside a little bit of this aluminum, stuck it on there, let it sit for about a minute or so, and peeled the tape off. And after that set for a while, I did a healthy glob of E6000 down in this little corner here, just to help hold it in place just a little bit more. And it's on there really well now. So, and of course this just comes off nice and easy. And you can proceed to remove the grip section. Grip section's a little finicky whenever you go to reassemble it. I'll try to remember to go into that later. But essentially what you're doing is the 2 screws for the control box will push the chassis, this entire inner core, that way. And you have this set screw here pushing the chassis the other way. So as soon as I loosen this, the chassis can slide out. You want to be careful whenever you get yours, because this kill switch will be attached. If you have it like this and try to pull it out, that switch might catch on the shroud. So that entire piece comes out and you're left with this beautiful shroud with the iron sights, bunny ears, and freaking phenomenal pommel. One thing I will say is remember to grease your threads. Whenever I got it, it was pretty darn dry, and the last thing you want is your threads to seize up on something this custom, and let's face it, this rare. You're not going to come across these very often, if ever. So now we have the full chassis released. This can usually just come straight out. Yeah, it actually cooperated with me that time. Now, the only thing that was assembled on this when I got it was this kill switch was added, which it's not soldered or anything, so it's just a press fit. It's a really nice press fit too. But I'd have to say, after you get that soldered up, probably use a little E6000 across it or something to hold it in place. Don't think there's any real worries about it falling out, but you know, make it last forever. And the NeoPixels I got weren't quite cooperating with me whenever I went to test them, so I used one of my reverse mount NeoPixel LEDs and used it that way, and testing went beautiful with it. So, next step, go ahead and remove this for giggles. It's not really needed to be removed, but you have your, it's actually a stock V2 PCB for this. So this is technically the old model, but get my orientation right. Just goes in beautifully. Perfect polycarbonate. The only thing I don't like about this is it sticks out considerably from the base of the emitter, so I think what I'm going to do there is just 3D print a piece for maybe a short pin PCB, or maybe I can still use this and just have it recess a little deeper, but I'm not too sure about that one yet. It does come with a nice little NeoPixel holder as well, just to help keep it away from that aluminum. Now you might notice there's a hole in here for the top crystal. Now that is something that I added myself. There's no hole there normally. But of course I wanted to light up that crystal. I mean, let's face it, that's freaking gorgeous. You know? You gotta have it. Now granted, if I was just doing the one crystal, I could have just, you know, would have been all hunky-dory, but so moving on to the next part. I want to remove these 4 screws. Well, actually, you only need to remove 2 if you want to get this apart. That's the 2 bottom ones. And you can remove these other 2 screws up here. I honestly don't think removing these 2 will help with anything as far as installing goes, but it certainly helped me on doing these modifications, specifically that hole and fitting the brass piece on. This mesh I added, it's just a beautiful pressure fit whenever I get it all screwed together, so no worries about gluing that down or anything. Now these ribs, they're all individually machined, so I was actually able to wiggle them off. So I went ahead and put some E6000 on the back of them and re-secured them. So, but man, that's just, and I will say the freaking, the wire routing is just perfect on this thing. So I mean, you're gonna have your wires coming out of here, and it's gonna be following these 2 little channels here, which is just big enough for the high gauge wire that we need for NeoPixels. Let's see, so here's a 22 gauge wire here, and it's perfect. There's enough room. So probably what I'm gonna do is, since we're getting these new LED strips out that have like 400 to 500 LEDs on them, I'm probably going to run dual 22s, unless I decide to get froggy and buy some 18 gauge, but I think I'll do dual 22s and call it a day, just so that I can, you know, use whatever need be in the future as far as LED blades go. Now as far as this part, this one I'm probably not going to keep the exact same way as it is now. I think I'm going to eliminate this piece, because let's face it, whenever you put that piece in, you can't access those button head screws down there, like at all. And you can see that those button head screws thread all the way down into this big rod here, which just secures everything in place. But I will admit, this is very impressive how he did this. Because you have your 2.54 millimeter pin headers there that attach the kill switch, or that are attached to the kill switch, and the 3 millimeter white LED there. However, once this goes on and you solder it, oh, God willing, God help whoever decides to do that, because I will say I took this piece out and checked it out, and it was a major pain to get back in. So I mean, if you ever, yeah, I'm probably not going to use this. Granted, I love the design, it's very cool, but there are some drawbacks to it as well, and I'll show you real quick. So, the LEDs that come with the kit are your typical WS2812Bs. However, you can see the problems here. So whenever the squares are actually in the socket, you're kind of fighting that a little bit. Now granted, that'll work. I'm pretty sure that'll work, because I mean this is just going to go over it all. So that'll totally work. But at the same time, you know, it's probably be better to just trim a little fat off the sides here. That being said though, if I was going to use this, I would still go with these skinnier strips, because it's just absolutely perfect. And you can still get to all these pads and stuff. However, the route that I'm going to go is not use this piece, even though it is a beautiful piece of, it looks like Delrin to me. The custom PCB is really cool too. How it just fits together perfectly. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get these LED strips on this edge over here and use a female pin header. Like that. That way, if work ever needs to be done in here, you can easily remove that instead. And I've already tested fitment. There's actually a lot of room on the inside. Like, you have all that space there and in here. With how I'm doing it too, like that is a ton of storage room for wires. And like I said before, that was a major pain. It's really well done, but I'm not going to remove that if I don't absolutely have to. And for removing those button head screws, I get the trusty old ball end Allen wrench. Make life a lot easier on me. This is just such an impressive saber. It's too bad that, you know, myself included, people have been waiting so long on these. And I can see why it takes the owner of Saberkraft half a day to, you know, finish the final assemble on these. Because, man, there's so much tight tolerance and, honestly, perfection in this design. So once you loosen those two, you got your two really long... Oh, it's not coming out because... yeah. The micro USB's in the way. And I mean, God, even look at that shit. Like, pardon my French, but God, it's just freaking everything was thought of here. You even got mounting holes for the flipping USB. Like, genius, man. Freaking genius. Not only that, he also, you know, trims down a little bit of the edges there so it'll fit, and it's just perfect fitment, man. Like, Jesus. There is so much admiration for this design from my end. Place over here or something. So then, once you get that out, these button heads come off quite easy. And there's that part there. Now, I have not removed these LED diffusers just because I don't have to, and I did kind of play around with it a little bit, but they're in there well enough that I don't feel the need to mess with it. And you have your brass bit there. The recharge port that came with it was one of the cheaper Chinese off-brand ones, so I swapped it out for a Switchcraft. And of course, you know, got a little Shapeways kill key here. Rest in peace, Shapeways. And you have your thorax chassis. Now this is a thing of beauty as well. So essentially, your speaker ring threads on. And in my limited fitment of this, using one of my non-functioning test speakers. I did kind of sand down the edge a little bit where the terminal is, just so it fits a little better. But man, that 28mm speaker, I bet you this thing is going to roar when it's installed, because it is fully enclosed, like aside from down in there, which you'll see in a moment. Just overall, all the edges, you know, you got your breathing room back there, and I bet you this thing's gonna scream. Oh yeah, I gotta. Those things, those are a little hard to get up. Giggity. So how this works is you got like a clipping mechanism on one side and the threaded rod section on the other side. Get your little flathead in there. Boom, out goes the speaker. Now as far as taking this apart, this was really impressive too, what he did here. You know, he made these custom PCBs for the positive and negative terminal, but that's not, I mean, yeah, that's impressive, but what really astounded me was how he partially achieved a removable battery setup here. It is removable, but it's not easy to remove, because once this is installed, you're going to have the 2 wires for the speaker, which I'm probably going to route through those 2 holes there. So you could essentially, you know, push from the back end, get the speaker out and have wires dangling. Or you might even, no, you'd have wires dangling. You also have the negative wire, but you could, in theory, have a removable battery. Just, you know, have the wires out, pull the battery out, put a new battery back in, you know, if it ever crapped out on you and you have to replace it. Put a new battery in and reassemble appropriately. And the 18650, it is a tight fit. You can see I'm kind of jacking up the sticker from test fitting this, but it's a very nice tight fit. You'll see down in there, what this was quite ingenious. He used threaded heat inserts, those little brass heat inserts, and he used those as the battery connection points. It's really smart, and it works really well. I mean, once it's in there too. There's no wiggle room. Like, this is really tight tolerance and quite beautifully achieved. I did check this the other day, just for giggles, but go and check it again. Our positive, our negative. Beautiful. You can't see it because of the glare. Oh, there we go. Yeah. 4.19 volts. Genius design. And I'm pretty sure a solid piece of brass, like what's connecting these, a little threaded heat insert, pretty sure that could handle 10 to 15 amps worth of current. Yeah, that's tight. Yeah, I'll remove that after the fact. Maybe I'll just do this. There we go. Sticker's already messed up, so I'll probably replace the heat shrink too, so no worries there. Replace it with something a little fancier. But after that, you have each individual section that comes out. And you can see these latches are a little different. So to me, it seems like this would be the hole for the rod to guide through, and this would be, since it has a flat edge, this would be the part you pop up. And these little, it's really smart, these little rubber bands here, works freaking beautifully. So I plan on using Profi with this. I do worry about those things. Like, I feel like I'm going to break it sometimes. And there's no way in hell you'll ever get another one of these pieces. So, Profi just fits in there beautifully. And there's a little bit of room with the battery in there. You got just a little bit of room underneath the SD card where you can fit wires. Once the battery's fully inserted, you know. I'm glutton for punishment over here. You got just enough space in between the SD card and the battery. You got quite a bit of room to work with there, but yeah, it's making it look good will likely be a challenge because, I mean, I guess you could route your wires down, maybe come straight off and branch off, but as far as putting wires underneath, there's not much in the way of possibility there. Looks like you could get your LED wire on 2 and 3, but hell, at this rate I'd probably just wire it up down here and just push it up a little bit, make it look nice and neat. And of course, once you snap this down, you got that rubber band that kind of helps hold the board in place. It's just a really well designed everything, actually. Like, yeah, I've made some modifications to the hilt so far, but that's based on personal preference. I got it out that time. Yeah, I mean, essentially that's really all there is to it. This part comes off, and this part comes off, and that part comes off. Now, I believe, looking at these rods, they're all glued in place. So, I kind of... Well, this one does spin whenever I tighten it too much, so that one's probably somewhat loose, but not too worried about it. So yeah, that is my Saberkraft Flame disassembly. It truly is something else. I would like to say I've been patient for the entirety of this run, but I have not. I think once it hit about the 3 to 4 year mark, I became really impatient because the excuses just kept on coming from Saberkraft, and I will say that, you know, I like how he includes all the extra parts and whatnot. You know, it looks like there's an extra battery positive threaded insert and a battery negative insert. I like that he includes all the parts, well, most of the parts needed for an install. I mean, there's what, the battery, the board, and the NeoPixel connector. Everything else, well, and the speaker, everything else is supplied. But products from this guy is absolutely top-notch. Absolutely amazing. I mean, even the grips are over-engineered. Well, I wouldn't say over-engineered. I would say they're properly engineered. I mean, geez, it's the media blasting on this, beautiful. Cleaned out those holes a little bit. There was still some media blast in there. Even the grips, you know, like, he even designed these trays in here for adhesive. I just use a little double-sided tape, obviously, because don't know if I want to keep them on there yet or not. I was doing this for a see if I like it or not deal. And I gotta be honest, I do like those grips. It doesn't add as much chunk as I thought it would. Yeah, what else to go over? I think that's really about it. So far I've disassembled this hilt at least 2 or 3 times, so I got a pretty good feel for it. Was not overly intimidating. I do really like the fact that there's so much room down in here for wires. That's really one of the few spots you have for wire routing. I mean, you do have some room down here for the wires to come to the soundboard, but it will probably get a little tight. I did think about replacing this with a USB-C because it is so close. Like, here's a stock USB-C. And I mean, God, look at this crap. It's like right right flipping there. Trying to hit it from this end. It's so close, it's ridiculous. I thought about doing this, but those threaded holes for the micro USB, it's too nice. I'm going to end up just using the threaded holes most likely. But I do have quite a bit of different USB-C ports. But I don't think any of them will work in the same manner. Unless this one does, but I'd be shocked if it did. Yeah, that's way wider spacing. So I'll end up just using this. And with a Profi V3, won't even have to worry about a battery charging module or anything. So yeah, I think that's about it for the disassembly video. I think I may take a video for the reassembly, I might not. Either way, this should help get you guys started on your install. You did see these other boards here. Essentially, if I don't lose everything, if you look at Saberkraft's website, so this one is for a NeoPixel LED, and this one is for an RGB LED, which he includes that with as well in his little kit, but I gotta have NeoPixel, you know, data in, data out, subblade, chain them all together. And instead of this part for the NeoPixels, you have this part which you can attach SMD LEDs to. Which, you know, this would probably work out better as far as the whole, you know, easier removability, but it's still, yeah, I'm going to go with the idea I have. Yeah, it wouldn't work the same way I would want it to. As far as using that pin header goes, no, I would have to modify this board, and then I'm going to lose one of the traces probably, and that's just, no, it ain't going to work for me. I like what he did, but I'm going to go with what I want to go with. So yeah, hope you all enjoyed the video. Hope it helps somebody out there. Until next time, may the force be with you.